I'd like to call the Newman City Council regular meeting of June 13th, 2000 to order. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, God, for bringing us here safely tonight. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our community. This we pray. Amen. Amen. I was looking for May we have a roll call, please?
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present. Item number 5, these are communications from the staff. Is there anything tonight?
I don't believe so.
No? Okay. Item number 6, these are items from the public. These are non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Are there any non-agenda items tonight? Okay, seeing none. Items from the public, agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the mayor and the council grants a longer period of time. Item number 7, these are public hearings. There are none tonight, so we'll move to item 8. This is a consent calendar. Item 8A is approval of the warrants. B, approval of minutes of the May 23rd, 2000 regular meeting. C, adopt resolution 2000 next to number establishing a tax-related appropriation limit in compliance with Prop 4 for fiscal 2000-2001. D, adopt resolution number 2000 next to number authorizing a general fund administrative surcharge for non-general fund costs. E, authorize the city manager to execute agreement for use of city facilities between City of Newman and Central Valley Soccer League Real Olympico. And F, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2000-02, an ordinance adopting park rules and regulations for the City of Newman. Are there any questions on the consent calendar? Seeing none, can we have some direction on that?
Motion we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Should that be less the 18,861 to PG&E?
That's not, it is separate,
Oh.
Tom, down
Yeah,
there.
it's on 9G.
9G.
That's approval of all warrants.
Oh, excluding, yeah.
Okay.
It should, yeah, excluding.
Well, just for the record, excluding 18861 to PG&E. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 9A, this is to consider allowing use of Newman Youth Center for 12-week program for youth ages 13 to 18, sponsored by the Stanislaus County Health Services Agency. Cleve?
Just quickly, Mr. Salvador Vera is here with us tonight to present this program. We have reviewed this with Mr. Vera and the police chief to look at what this program is. I'm going to ask him also to cover one more program that we would like to use our youth center for at this time, and then the police chief can add some comments on that if he would like to. So, Sal, I'll turn the time over to you just to kind of explain the program, and then we can continue from there. I don't think it likes you, Sal. We need the microphone, though, to pick it up on the recording. So, if you'll wait just 1 minute.
That won't reach over.
They used to say in school, back in the cover.
Tell me about it.
She could prepare them.
Okay, let's try this again. All right.
My name is Salvador Vera. I'm a health educator with the Stanislaus County Health Services Agency. And I just wanted to talk briefly to the board about a program that we want to start here in the city of Newman. The program is called Círculo de Hombres, Hombres Jóvenes con Palabra, and I'll translate that. It stands for Circle of Men, Young Men of Their Word. It's a program that the Health Services Agency sponsors. It's a teen pregnancy prevention / gang intervention program. It focuses on Hispanic youth, however, does not limit itself to Hispanic youth. The target age is 13 to 17, young men, adolescents. The program is filled with arts, crafts. The lessons are taught through the indigenous perspective. There's history, there's, culture and tradition. As I guess you have an outline of the program. There are 12 weeks. The program is absolutely free. We've had success with this program in Modesto. We ran a 12-week session at Henshaw Middle School, and we had 22 young men start the program and 19 finish. 3 of our young men, 2 of them left to another school and 1 left to Mexico and didn't come back. We also had success in Patterson, at Patterson High School. We had 21 young men start and 20 finish. 1 young man we couldn't keep from going to baseball, but that was okay. The program is pretty comprehensive. It covers everything from respect, responsibility, accountability. It has basically everything that I guess you could consider child development, sexuality, decision-making, conflict resolution, the whole 9 yards. Any questions on the program?
Are there any questions?
Yeah, how do you pick the students?
I don't. What I would do is do open recruitment. Come out here. There are a lot of young men at the Westside Valley High, or students of Westside Valley High, that I've been talking to about the program, all year long. I would basically come out and do some recruitment here in the community with the young men on probation at the continuation school. And I'm not sure if you are going to have a summer school session, but if so, through the summer school. I'm looking at a group of about 20 young men. I have probably about 10 to 12 in mind. The probation officer that's in charge of this area out here, Maria Duran, has about 6 young men that she has in mind that she'd like to go through the program. This program is not like the probation program. This one is not mandatory. This is of your own free will. I would not select the young men. Whoever applies and is interested in the program is welcome, and it's free.
Tom, if I can add, Sal, if you'll help me out here, you're currently doing this program
Yes.
for, what you said you had about 6 young men in it now?
Oh,
Here-
no,
Here
no.
in Newman?
That's the straight talk
That's
program.
the other
That's
program,
the other
okay.
program, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If there aren't any questions, I'd like to talk a little bit about the other program.
Are
The
there-
program that's on the agenda.
Okay. Are there any questions for Sal
The
first?
only question I had was, the 12 sessions, 2 or 3 days a week, 1 day per session, 2 or 3 hours
Uh-huh.
per session. Is it, I know it's summertime, so school's out, but does it run into the school season, and what time do they meet?
No, what we would do, we were looking at the times, Friday, I'm out here, the major part of the day here in Newman. We were looking at running the program from 11 to 1, and as soon as school starts back up, we would taper down and move it to, right after school, 3 p.m. If we do get the program started before July, if we had the opportunity to meet twice a week, we might even finish the first phase before school gets in. I guess our goal is to get some young men interested in the program so that when school starts up and we start, a larger program, we have a good foundation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one, do you have any follow-up after the program to see how these young men are developing?
Yeah, both schools, Henshaw Middle School and Patterson, for example, Henshaw Middle School, we finished up the last week of January. We're still meeting. The program itself, the curriculum is over, but But now what we've done is we give the young men the opportunity to discuss. It's a circle. It's a talking circle. You know, they use it in therapy. We didn't, you know, we're not, you know, psychiatrists or psychologists. This is something that, you know, indigenous people have been doing for thousands of years. I mean, we just sit down, the young men, you know, let each other know how they've been, what they've done since the last time they met, and whatever's on their mind. We just kind of, you know, go with the flow. They themselves have continued the program. In Patterson, we finished up the last week of May, and we're still meeting. I'm going to be meeting with them Thursday. Yeah, so I've got some freedom from, you know, my boss. The program's been pretty successful. So, you know, we got through the first 12 weeks, which are curriculum, you know, and the curriculum is based on a curriculum put together by Jerry Theo, who's the director of the National Latino Fatherhood Institute, and the curriculum has been evaluated by the state, and you know, it's a really good curriculum. And I just kind of added my flavor to it. In Modesto, I had to make some changes because the curriculum was formulated for high school, and the school was a junior high, so I just kind of toned it down a notch. And then in Patterson, I used the high school curriculum, but you know, had to adapt it to Patterson. So again, we would do the same here to Newman. You know, it's add Newman flavor.
Thank you, that's the only question.
Any other questions? Okay. The other program that I want to take an opportunity to pitch is the Straight Talk program. And you folks don't have an outline of this program, but I have a few handy here if anyone's interested in taking a glimpse at those. This is a 12-week program. Like Mike said, the 12-week thing, it's like popular. This is a 12-week program that I put together for juvenile probation. And juvenile probation, as most of you may know, has programs like anger management, conflict resolution, respect, values, that they put the young men on formal and informal probation through. So you do something bad, you don't just go in full weeds. You have to go through these programs that, you know, will help you in decision making and whatnot. Well, I was asked to put together a program for the rural areas of the county, which happen to be Patterson and, you know, Newman. And I did this back in, I want to say 98. And we started the pilot in Patterson, and it went really well. We had 17 young men start and finish, and the 17 young men that started the program, went through the program, and finished the program, have since then stopped getting in as much trouble as they were. Then it just kind of grew. It was supposed to be, you know, like I said, just in the rural areas. Now we have a group going. We've got 27 young men in Modesto. We've got 25 young men in Turlock. We've got 6 young men here in Newman. We have 10 in Patterson, and we've got Turlock and series that are pending, but there's only one of me, so you know, it's kind of tough. But the program is also very strong, 12 weeks. The program is called Straight Talk because it's just that. You know, there's no pulling punches. This is basically a step up of the curriculum that I cover at Westside Valley High with Mary Pickford and the students there. This is straightforward. It's just life skills. You need to know this. This is how it is, and you know, any questions? Yeah.
Are there any questions for Sal? No? Well, the only thing I'd like to say about this is the fact that, and I've brought this up before, one is the fact that Newman, I think for the last 3 or 4 years now, has had the highest domestic violence rate in the county per capita. And I know we were one of the higher ones when it comes to teenage pregnancy. And obviously these young men that you talk about have a role in that. And it seems to me that if we don't get to them now, when they're 12, 13, 14 years old, we're going to have a lot of problems down the road. So I certainly think that that's something that I'm in favor of as far as establishing a program like that in Newman and getting some of these kids straightened out.
Just quickly, I don't know, Chief, if you would like to mention what he would like to see happen with this diversion program also.
I can say that I've worked with Sal on some other projects, and he's a follow-through guy, and I'll tell you what, that's what really makes a program.
It's also very gratifying to be able to see that we are kind of out on a spoke from the hub, and to be able to get these resources out to Newman, I think is just very gratifying. I'm also looking at this as a resource for our local city diversion program, our police department diversion program. This would be an asset for us and another facet that we'd be able to funnel kids to keep them out of actually the probation loop, and get them, I think, some things that would actually probably really help them in the long run. So I really look at this as an asset, and looking forward for Sal to be able to start this up. So,
Yeah. And looking at our
I'll
staff
support it.
report here, in terms of the cost, would be the utilities for the use of the building. For something like this, I don't see that being a problem if the city could.
It will be minimal. I'm
Right.
saying that it will have.
Right. So
minimal
if we could have the
impact, so.
city take care of these costs for this program, and also, and obviously it sounds to me that if the city can offer any assistance, it can to make this program as successful as possible, if we can do that as well. Are there any other further comments or questions?
No, just one of the things, other things that brought this up, I believe, Sal, too, was the Straight Talk program currently has been meeting at West Valley High. However, they're out of school now, and so that's closed at the end of the day. When Sal, I believe he told me last week when I met with him, that they went over there to meet and found out, uh-oh, we don't have a place to meet, and they met in the park. And sometimes that may not be too bad, but on days like today, it probably wasn't too pleasant if you had to meet in the park. So this will allow them to continue that program going.
Well, I'm just glad to see that we're finally getting some of the benefits that we should have been getting all along out here in Newman. And we need these type of programs. I'm glad to see that you're doing something about it.
Thank you.
So if there are no further questions, can we give staff direction to participate with the Stanislaus County Health Services Agency to begin this program? Do you need formal action on this?
Yeah. So moved.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay. No, if there's any agreement. Oh, because in the agreement, does it have me in it? Okay, item 9B is to authorize the mayor to execute new agreement with Westside Theater Foundation for 3-year term with 3-year renewal option. Cleve?
The end of this month, the agreement with the Westside Theater Foundation agreement, that agreement will come, the term expires, and so we wanted to bring that back to keep that going. We have no problems. In fact, if anything, we're looking very positively towards what the theater has been able to do so far and what they're going to be able to do in the future. The only thing is, I brought up 2 items on your agenda that we need to discuss, because in the current agreement that we are under, we think there need to be some changes one way or the other on those. The first one is the term of the agreement. What we have put in there now is for a 3-year lease, which would have an automatic renewal unless either party elects not to renew the agreement. So, in other words, we don't have to go back and look at this extensively. It'll just continue unless one of the party comes out and says there's something in here we need to look at. I think that's a fairly simple one, unless any of the council feels that they don't want to do that. The second item, in our current agreement, it states that the Theater Foundation will be responsible for utilities at the theater. Since the beginning, we all know that how tough it is to get something like that going, and so the city has been paying the utilities for the theater. I've given you a brief outline over the last about 5 months. I went back to show you what utilities are at the theater. In addition, with the lighting of the neon sign, those will probably go up somewhat. I don't know if maybe one of the foundation members that are here might be able to, if they've got any estimates on how much that might increase.
I don't
do you have any
believe
ideas?
they've,
They haven't looked at that at all.
given
Okay.
us any
Okay.
figures on that.
I've talked with Ferris Larson briefly about this, and one of the things we talked about is that perhaps the city wants to put a cap on how much they would contribute towards utilities if they decide that they do want to continue contributing in utilities. Bottom line is, one way we should at least address it in the agreement. If the city wants to pay it, then we need to change the agreement. Otherwise, we need to go back to the foundation, and we want to let them know that this will now be their responsibility for payment of utilities. As you can see, the average over the last 5 months has been for the theater $188, and then they have the small office, which has been about $19 a month. So those are the numbers for your information that we're paying for utilities. And Ferris or David, whoever, if you'd like to make any comments or address this, you're welcome to.
Well, first of all, we'd like to compliment the city on the great flyer that they just put out. Yeah. That was very nice, featuring the theater on the front. We were kind of slightly bewildered when we found out that the city was going to thinking of cutting off our funds for the PG&E, because what that money does for us is much greater than what the city gets out of $200. We do a lot with that $200 because labor is free, and some of the impacts that might happen, we may have to charge higher fees to some of the local nonprofits for using the building. As far as the neon being added to that, I assume that the city really wanted the neon, and then to say now you're going to pay for it seems kind of funny. But the money that is taken away by having us pay for the PG&E is just money basically taken out of the improvements of the building, which we are doing for nothing for them. Let's see what else. It says here that the financial position of the theater has improved somewhat. Yes, it has, but one project can change that like that. We have many, many projects to improve the building, which we hope to keep continuing to improve the city's building. What else have we got? I'm not sure what I'm not sure of the budget that was given the theater for. I think it was for maintenance, and with that, the PG&E was paid through that, I do believe. And I don't think we've ever gone over that or even close to it. I don't think.
I'd have to ask Margaret. Is that correct, Margaret? Okay.
That's how it was. It was, in other words, we're maintaining the building. We're fixing things up. We don't ever come to the city and say, "Hey, come down here and fix this." We do that, and in compensation that they pay the PG&E. We kind of figured that's how it was kind of working. We did vast improvements that everybody knows. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of how we feel about it. But I mean, anyway, that's.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a comment. You know, I of course, I work very closely with these good people, and I know the hours that volunteers have put in to make this all possible. And there's a tremendous amount of hours and time and a lot of love that goes into making that theater what it is today. And exactly what David's saying, that when they take this money away from them, then there's other things that won't happen at the theater. So I'm opposed to making them pay for this. And I think that also with the neon lights, you know, we're going to make this town alive, and I think we should pay for it.
Any other comments?
Have we received the income and expense report from them showing what their position is right now? Balance sheet?
That wasn't that done about 6 months ago? Didn't
Well, and
you?
comment
It's
on,
supposed to be done every year or something like
to
that.
comment on that, like I say, we may have, we may have $20,000 in the bank, which we don't, but it can be gone like that. I mean, to say that we're financially off, you know, it's, and one of the reasons we are is because there's no labor being paid. So, no matter what it is, it's never enough. I mean, you know, we can go at it slower, and we can stop doing it, and then we'd have more money, and then we can pay the PG&E. But
Are there any,
Well, my question was, and it hasn't been answered. Have we
we don't know.
received-
I have we received it. We can get that for you if you'd like.
Are you aware, Margaret, when the last one was received? Okay, we can check into that and find out, but I'm not sure. when.
Yeah, I'd like to see one.
Tom, I'm probably as close to it as any of the rest of them, and basically, they have all the figures of what's been taken in, what's been put out, and at the present time, there are funds in there to basically cover the neon and other expenses, and that's about it. So it's more on a, each individual program is sort of on its own. You make money, you have a little bit of money to spend on the building. If you don't, then you don't have the money. So it's, like I say, right now, there are funds to pay for the neon that's going in and the other facade projects, but if those were paid, then there would be just virtually nothing, just enough to maintain the insurance and all this stuff till we get another program going. But yeah, there are the figures.
We will
and
try to.
I'm sure that
We
they'll
will
get
try to
here
get
by
that
the next
figure for
meeting.
you.
Okay, well, I mean,
Yeah.
the agreement says that they will supply them every year, so I...
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sheila, did you have any comments on that?
Well, I wanted to make a comment, although I don't think I can participate in the votes due to a possible conflict, but possible. But, you know, I just want to say, you know, how much I appreciate. I mean, you can go down there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and here's Ferris and David and you know, I mean, they're down there working their hearts out, and other members of the community, and I just, you know, to charge them for this when the city is really benefiting from what they're doing is, I think it's wrong.
Yeah, I think when,
Oh, it gives you something to do.
I think what happened though, when the city bought this building, it's been 4 years now, I think we went into it with the intention that we were going to be a partner with the West Side Theater Foundation. And although the neon lighting is going to be done in the interior and the facade and so forth, you know, as you say, there are still these projects. There are still some. Right. There. Right. So there are still some projects that need to be done. And like I said, when we initially got into this thing, we went into it as a partner, knowing full well that there were going to be extensive renovations that were going to take some time. And I think you know, keeping that, I think we need until the theater's completely done, and until, you know, they've got in there what, you know, and until they feel that this thing's done to where they want it to be at, you know, we're going to continue to be a partner. So this contract here is 3 years with an automatic renewal. I don't have a problem with paying the lighting.
Well, another thing you want to consider too is that they have brought a lot of people into the city, and some of those people are spending money,
Right,
and we're
right.
getting taxed back out of that. So we're not really spending $2,500.
Right.
Well,
I
It's
hopefully,
going
think
to be a
I-
lesser figure.
hopefully we're keeping people in.
Yeah, and I think, and I remember, and Bob remembers this, when we bought this theater, you know, when we began this process of the downtown revitalization, the main reason, I think, why we bought it was this was the most significant building right in the middle of town. And yeah, and we thought, why in the world are we going to do downtown revitalization when we've got the most significant building that is in such poor shape? And you know, of course, we see how good a shape it's in now, and I think we just need to continue on in the role that we're playing, and at some point in the future, you know, they'll
We
be
hope-
able to come
we
to
hope
us
to
and
be,
say,
Independent someday. Yes.
right,
And there's
they'll come
no
to us in the
downside.
future and say, these projects that we set out to do are done. You know, let's revisit this again and see about becoming completely independent. But But I think
That's a
until-
goal of the theaters also.
Right,
But
right.
right now, it'd just be a detriment.
And I think up to this point, you know, we certainly all know that the benefits have far outweighed the costs, and I think to continue paying for the lighting is minimal compared to the benefits that we're getting. But as Tom said, if we could, you know, certainly if we could get that information that way, you know, we could keep up to date on what's going on with that information.
So we can bring that back to you at your next meeting.
Right, okay. But if we could go ahead and move forward on this item and continue to pay for the electrical, if we could have some direction on that.
I think if you want to do that, then I think we want to just take out paragraph 9.
That's what
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay.
To the next number.
So if we could adopt it as written, minus paragraph 9.
I move that we authorize the mayor to execute a new agreement with West Side Theater Foundation for a 3-year term with 3-year renewal option, less paragraph number 9 with other remaining paragraphs moving up one number.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? You didn't participate?
Not
Okay.
participating.
Motion passes 4-0 with one non-participating. Item 9C, this is appointment of alternates to the Architectural Review Committee. Cleve?
The Architectural Review Committee meets from time to time, basically on an as-needed basis, and there's come up a couple of situations where there's been times when we've wanted to call a meeting in order to allow projects to continue to move forward, and we haven't been able to get a quorum of members to keep so that we could meet. Based on that, we wanted to bring this back to council to consider appointing alternate members to that committee. And what we are recommending tonight there are 2 planning commissioners who have expressed interest. Now, obviously, the one thing that we'll have to be careful on that is that will make one planning commissioner who is currently a member plus 2 alternates. We wouldn't be able to use both alternates unless they're replacing that one planning commissioner, so we would have to watch that. But other than that, we would like to have the council consider appointing these 2 alternates to the committee in case we cannot get a quorum. We can use them to fill the committee so that we can keep the projects moving forward that we're looking at.
Okay. And you said some of these this lack of quorum has held up projects?
There's been occasion when we've tried to schedule a meeting and have not been able to, and generally we've been able to do it within a week from when we originally set out to do, but there have been times when we haven't been able to do it as quickly as we would like to.
Right.
Because you recall, some of these are very simple projects that can be in that may be just something that someone's painting their building. But according to our ordinances, it requires architectural review. And so we basically need a simple, quick meeting to say, yeah, this color's okay, this will go good on that building. But we can't get a quorum together to tell them, and it may delay a person that's ready to paint tomorrow that says, you mean I can't start tomorrow? I need to wait until you guys tell me it's okay. And so that's what we want to try to avoid.
Well, what I'd like to just do, I don't have a problem appointing these 2, but if we could, you know, when we have our different committees, we have an alternate, that throughout the county or whatever, we have our different alternates. Because one of the things that I don't want to hear come back to us again is the fact that somebody's being held up on their project because something. If somebody's got a project, I want to see it started. So I wouldn't be opposed if we appoint these, then if maybe we ask these others, the Historical Society, the resident at large, the Chamber of Commerce person, and the professional, if they're interested in having an alternate, if they're aware of an alternate, that way we don't run into this problem again. If somebody wants to get started on their project, we need to start it. So I don't have a problem appointing these 2, but let's ask these other 4 if they have an alternate in mind.
Yeah, I agree with Charles. I think that each one of these entities should have their own at-large, their own alternate. Yeah.
That way when we need to have the meetings, we have them, and we don't do this again. So, if we can do that, if you could bring it back to us at the next meeting for the others, and then we could appoint these two
Mayor
tonight.
Marquez, something that Judy brought up, and it does, I think it is important, if they do select an alternate, that they assure that the alternate is available during the meeting times.
Right.
You know, if it's someone that works out of town, they probably aren't going to be available,
Right.
even as an alternate. So.
Well, the thing we just need to emphasize to them is that if there's somebody that has something that they want to, a project that they want to do, we need somebody that's going to be available. That way these people move forward and they don't have to wait.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we could bring the other four back, but if we could have some direction to appoint these two, Ed Ford and Paul Wallace as the alternate planning
moved.
commissioners.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 9D, this is to agree to participate in funding for a survey regarding the joint school-city bond to fund various city and school facilities. Cleve?
As you know, the school city committee has been meeting on a regular basis to put together a possible joint city-school bond. Currently, what they are looking at is hopefully getting that ready for the November election. And I participated in some interviews at the school board meeting when they interviewed both financial consultants and survey people, and they have come back and recommended the attached person to do the survey. You have some information on them. As I mentioned, I sat in on most of the interviews for these survey people, and this is the one that I would have recommended also. This is the same person who did the Livermore project, which was very successful. He helped them with the survey. He did the survey, and then he also helped them with the campaign after the survey, or after the decision was made to go with the bond. Basically, what I have discussed with the superintendent, and he is what we are proposing as far as the cost of this is to wait and see what the actual makeup of the bond ends up being, and then agree that we would reimburse the school district for the percentage of our share of the bond. I suppose that means if it comes back and says that we've decided that it's better just to do a school bond, we may want to discuss some things. We may want to talk about whether or not we participate, because the survey will actually include some city facilities. But the way it's currently spelled out, we would like to at least look at it on that basis. Initially, we would like to look at doing, considering these facilities that I've listed in this report. Those include Mariposa Park, a joint gymnasium at the junior high facility, a swimming pool, and a senior center. Those are some of the facilities that we would like to include in the survey to test and see if what type of facilities the community would like to see. If there are others besides those that the council would like to see considered as part of this survey and as part of the bond, please let me know. I believe that if this is approved tonight, myself and Mr. Salinas will be meeting immediately with the surveyor to get this going. I mentioned that there is a schedule in this, a project schedule or a schedule for the survey. I've already spoken to him and told him that that won't work because that puts us behind the gun on getting on the November election. And he said that he can, that was just a sample, and that he can move it up to make it work for what our needs are. So
Okay.
that timeline will be moved.
That was a question that I was going to ask, was with regards to this timeline. What was their deadline that they need to pass a resolution, and that we have to pass a resolution to have something on the November ballot?
I believe that it's about mid-August or around the 10th of August. I don't have the exact date, but I believe it's around the 10th of August.
So around mid-August that we have to do a resolution?
Right.
Okay.
So basically, we would have to have something ready to go, have decided what the bond amount is going to be, what facilities we're including in the bond, and everything by that date in order to get it on.
So they have to cut off about a month and about 6 weeks off of this timeline that they have here.
Right.
They need to tighten it up by about 6 weeks.
Yeah. And we can do that easily. You know, those first ones, the July 15th date, that can be moved up easily by at least 2 weeks. And then obviously everything moves up to 2 weeks. Also, the August 1st date can be moved up significantly. It's not going to take us 2 weeks to finalize the questionnaire, I don't think. One of the things that I will probably come back with you and discuss is how much involvement the council wants to have in seeing that questionnaire, or if you want us to go with it just on a staff level and discussing it with the surveyor and with the school committee. We can meet them, get them together quite quickly. But if the council wants to, obviously if the council wants to have a closer involvement with that questionnaire and how that's developed, that will possibly push the schedule back somewhat, because we need to bring it back to the council at a regularly scheduled meeting, or we can schedule special meetings if we need to.
Well, I'd like to see us at least, just maybe do one special meeting, just because if, you know, of this $13 million capacity that we're looking at that the district has, and if we're looking at the city being on the hook for about $4 million or something along those lines, I think we at least have a responsibility if we're going to ask the voters to pay up, and we're going to be responsible for $4 million of it. I think we at least want to take a look at.
You will definitely be there.
No, right, but I'm just saying we
before
should
you
have
make that
I'm just
decision.
saying we should probably for that kind of money. I don't think there's any harm in having a special meeting and then just having a look at it and then going forward from there. Because
At what point would you like to see it? At the final final questionnaire, before we actually issue them to go out and do the questionnaire? Or would you like to see it at the draft? Or?
well, let's kind of see.
I mean,
it at
we
the
can
dra-
still.
Well, let's see it at the draft, because if this thing's ready to go out tomorrow and it kind of gets to us and we have some objection to maybe some of the wording, you know, then what's the point of even having a meeting?
Well, sure.
So when it gets to the point of the draft, let's at least put our 2 cents in there and see if there's something that that could improve
Yeah,
it.
my only point was that at the draft stage, it will probably be very rough in my mind, and
Right,
that perhaps
right.
that some time could be saved in putting together, working out the rough spots, and then bringing it back to the council at more of a semi-final stage, if you will.
Yeah.
And at that point, hopefully, it's just small comments that are left and can be quickly changed and put.
Well, I'd prefer to see it at the draft, although the bulk of this is going to be from the school. The bulk of this bond is going to go towards school-related items. We're not talking about 50 cents on the city's end. We're talking about substantial money.
Yeah.
So I think for that we need to have our input on that.
Sure.
Well, wouldn't we still have our input? I mean, even though it's coming back to us, he said there could be some adjustments made.
I'd rather see it come back towards the end of the setting it up rather than at the beginning.
Well, if there's an in-between time between the draft and the, as you say.
Yeah, we can do it. I guess what I was looking at was bringing the draft copy to the school committee and then the final back to the full board and council. So essentially 2 of your members will see it at the draft level at the school committee, plus the Parks and Recreation Commission, and then we're hopefully close, and we bring it back to the council closer to a final stage, and they can vote on it.
I agree with that, because 2 of us are already on the committee.
And that's fine with me. I'm one of the people that are going to look at it. But for the sake of the other 3 that aren't on the school committee, if they don't object to that, then
No, I
Well,
don't think there's any
On your timeline here, there's a sentence where revised questionnaire sent to the city and district for review and more discussion. At that point, you have a revised questionnaire, so that would be a good point, I think, a good time to look at it.
After the first draft.
Yeah,
Right.
after the first.
Okay. So we want to bring it back, and we'll schedule, if we need to schedule an appropriate special meeting. And okay.
As it comes up. The important thing, hopefully, the council realizes that our timeline is very tight here, and hopefully you'll be able to schedule a special meeting as we need to make this work. So.
Oh, sure, anytime.
All right. Anything else?
That's it. Just we do would ask for a motion to agree to participate in the funding of the survey on that basis.
Okay. Can we have some direction on that?
I move we agree to participate in funding for survey regarding joint school city bond to fund various city and school facilities.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Cleve. Item 9E. This adopt a resolution approving plans and specifications for the downtown streetscape project contingent upon authorization from Caltrans. Cleve?
it's interesting. I was going through putting my staff report together for this, and I called Richard. I says, you know, what else can I put in this? It seems like for $1.6 million, I should have, you know, 20 or 30 pages at least here to put in here. But there's been a lot of work that has gone into this. I want to thank Richard and Reen, who are here tonight, and Kelly for all the efforts that they've done to get us to this point. This is a big step. We've still got a long ways to go. This is still going to be a lot of work to get this accomplished, but this is a big step to here, and we want to be able to move forward with it now with this. Richard or Reen, do you have any comments you'd like to add tonight?
Actually, I do have I think most of you were at the meeting last night, and at the meeting we did hand out a kind of a rough schedule. I'll go ahead and hand this out again for you to kind of look at, to kind of give you an idea where we're headed from here. As Cleve mentioned, we're due to receive Caltrans approval to go out to construction here this week. I had conversations last week over the phone with Caltrans staff, and they mentioned to me that we are due anytime this week to receive that approval. With that, we will then be able to put the plans and specs out to bid. The plans and specs are here for you to take a look at, or at our office anytime you'd like to come by and take a closer look at them. You're welcome to come by and thumb through them if you like. Primarily, as Cleve says, it's been really an extraordinary effort from city staff, our staff, Caltrans, and Stancog staff to get us to this point. We were under an extreme tight timeline from early February into now to try to meet this deadline. It seemed like we got approval from Caltrans relatively late on the project, so we had to make an extraordinary effort to get through to this point. We had some major hurdles along the way, one being the environmental issues that were raised, and luckily we were able to solve those with the help of our city planner, Mr. Borchard, and working very closely again with Caltrans to get those problems and hurdles solved. From here on out, like Cleve said, it's going to be again a battle to try to beat the weather to get all our streets and all the construction done before any of the heavy rains hit us. So we're moving as quickly as possible to try to get these plans out to bid and get the contractor online to get out there and start work as quickly as possible. So as soon as we receive Caltrans approval, it'll be a race to get it done. For the most part, the plans and specs have been pretty much mirroring all the previous planning studies that were done. All the elements that were previously talked about and decided upon by the streetscape committees have been closely adhered to. And outside of those, we have added a new storm drain trunk line down Main Street, which is going to pick up all our storm drainage up and down the project, which is a major element that we were able to do with the additional funding that we received. And we were able to add some more planters and some more landscaping opportunities along all the streets, which will help dress up the streets just a little bit more also. But outside of those, we pretty much have adhered to all the elements that were previously planned for. We are also planning for, at the alleyways, we're going to be putting in some conduits underground to help future efforts. When we go through those alleyways, we'll have conduits in place to underground all our crossings right at the street locations, so we don't have to come back and dig up the streets when we're going to be improving those alleyways and undergrounding all utilities there. So we're taking those into account, trying to plan ahead for those too. So, but from here on out, we're hoping to have a bid opening on or about the middle of July and be out construction shortly thereafter. We anticipated about a 90-day construction period, which would put us on or about the first part of November for completion of the project. So if you have any more questions, I'd be glad to answer those for you.
Well, the only thing I want to say is, and I want to publicly thank you and thank our staff and Cleve. And last night when we were at the meeting last night, we had a completion date of about 3 weeks after this, and so looking at the new construction schedule, we were able to save 3 weeks and able to tighten this thing up. So I think looking at this beginning, because as we had talked last night, there were just some gap in between some of the dates here where we could have special meetings, and looking at this revised beginning construction on August 1st, at least it gives us a good month of construction coming towards the Fall Festival. And looking at the completed construction, looking at November 1st now, that at least gives us a good month and a half for the merchants downtown for the during the holiday season. So sure. Before I open it up for other questions, I just want to thank our staff for doing a good job and being able to tighten the timeline by 3 weeks. So, are there any questions for Richard or staff?
Well, one question I had, I've been involved in a couple of projects, not city projects, but other construction projects, and one of the difficulties was that we didn't put wording into the bid for requirement of timely completion, and there weren't any penalties for untimely completion. So I'm sure that we're going to put something in the bid that requires that they not pull off to work on another job because they need to focus their time on completing our project in a timely manner. And so you're going to include.
Yes, those are included in the specs, the bid specs, that we are setting a timeline of 90 days to complete the project, and there will be some liquidated damages if they don't accomplish those in a timely basis. And there's some other, other provisions in there that will minimize closures of storefronts to a maximum of 24 hours for any storefront along during the period of construction. So yeah, all those provisions have been included in the specs.
That's even if they find the dry rot and all that other problems that might come in some of the buildings, which I think Kelly said there will be some. We know that.
Right.
Won't some of those possibly be closed longer than 24 hours?
Well, the storefronts, I'll say the doors themselves won't be closed longer than 24 hours. Okay. The fronts may be down for repair longer than that, but the actual doors will be open no longer than 24 hours will they be shut down.
There was a thing brought up at the meeting last night that there will be another public meeting after the bids are awarded, and the contractor will be there to answer any questions as far as approximate days that the stores will be closed.
Right. Once we do get a contractor online, we'll sit down with the contractor, get a schedule worked out that's suitable to the city and to the merchants, and we'll sit down with the merchants again to go over the schedule, review it with them, and again answer any of their questions so that hopefully they minimize any of the surprises along the way.
Any other questions? Comments?
Oh, let the games begin.
Yeah.
Did we have, Bob, did you have any? Did you have any? Okay. Well, the comment was that Pleasanton had a person that went daily to the merchants to inform them about the latest of what was going on.
It was brought up last night. The city of Ripon did what they call a block captain program. We've already talked a little bit about with the chamber. The chamber has offered to put that program in place for us to help select the block captains, and so we're going to look at that further. There are some other things that you'll see along the way that we will be doing also to make sure that merchants are informed. So we're trying to be as open as we can and get as much information out as we can to make this as smooth a process as it can be.
And of course, one of the advantages is that we're located right on Main Street. So, I mean, if there are any questions anytime during the construction period, we're going to be there and available to help answer any of those questions.
Yeah, which building of Hislop Center is that?
I don't know, which one? Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions for Richard, thank you very much.
Bob Naveau, 940 Fresno Street, Naveau Jewelers. The only thing that I think we really need to focus on, and you've already mentioned it, is this communication issue. For those of you that weren't around for the last tear-up of Main Street, we had some pretty ugly issues and scenes appear in spite of the fact that we thought everybody knew what was going to happen. Those are the types of things that I certainly would hope we try to minimize this time. And you know, hindsight is, as they say, is always 20/20. But even looking back now, I don't know how much more we could have done then. But I guess the lesson was do more. You know, I don't think you can tell people enough times what's going on, and certainly anyone can take the position, well, if you weren't listening, too bad. You're dealing with individuals and businesses that even one day can make a very big impact on our livelihood. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Cleve,
Bob.
you have your first block captain.
Okay, if there are no other questions, this is about one of the nicest motions that we've had to make in a long time. And if we could get some direction on this.
I make a motion, we adopt resolution number
Next number.
00, next number, authorizing staff to call for bids for downtown streetscape project contingent on authorization from Caltrans.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 9F, this is, before we go on that, actually, I wanted to catch the city engineer and our building inspector before they left. A quick question. I know we've just approved to go out to bid on this downtown streetscape. With regards to the plaza, I know that's going to be something that we're going to need to talk about here. I'm wondering, staffing-wise, how are you guys in terms of, that we're going to be doing this, I at least want to start getting the ball rolling as far as maybe doing some preliminary engineering, what we're going to do on that piece of property, and, you know, whether or not we're going to tear that down or what the heck we're going to do on that.
We can do some initial stuff, I think, and I'm going to say this without using too much of engineering, because I want to keep them going 100% on what they're doing right now. They have this, as you recall. They also have the Inyo project that we're still running with too, which will hopefully come back to you. We'll come back to you at your next meeting, because there are also some deadlines we're meeting on that one in order to get some additional funding. So that one will come back to you at your next meeting for approval. But yeah, we haven't done it yet, but we will come back with you for a preliminary plan of some things we want to do at that site, the city property that we purchased, to do some cleanup at it. And we've talked a little bit about it with the Public Works Director and I. We just need to move forward and get something sketched out.
So if we could begin the dialogue between
Sure.
you and our building department, if we could maybe begin some discussions there as far as when we could bring something like that back.
Sure.
That
Yeah, we can get that done either at the next meeting or the first meeting in July. We'll bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you. Item 9F, this adopt resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the City of Newman fiscal year 2000-2001. Margaret?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. The item before you is one that comes before every year at this time. It is a preliminary budget for the City of Newman fiscal year 2000-2001 and the Newman Redevelopment Agency 2000-2001. Few points I want to bring up. First of all, this is a preliminary budget. It is subject to revisions and adjustments based on a lot of information that we don't have yet. Secondly, while the budget is $8.2 million, less than 25% of that is the general fund. The rest of the funding is restricted, non-discretionary, which means you as the decision-making board really don't have that much to say about it. If you choose to get $500,000 to do a rehab grant, you'll get that revenue, but then you're going to spend it on a rehab grant. You don't have the discretion of how or where it's spent. It's pretty clearly defined in your revenue source and funding. Thirdly, this year, this is a bare bones budget. It is funding at a level which is just barely necessary to maintain our current level of services. So getting right into it, we'll just hit on a few highlights, and then if you have any questions. There are summary sheets that are attached to your staff report. The first one is the one that a council normally takes a lot of interest in, which is the variance between the projected revenue and the projected expenses. This year, tentatively, without a lot of information from the state, who funds a great portion of our general fund, projected revenues are $7,657,000 and projected expenses is $8,284,000. This reflects the current year only. Many of the funds that we have do accumulate money over a period of time and then spend it all at once on a major project. This is good in the way it should be. Prime example of that is our redevelopment bond, the redevelopment agency, the housing set-aside, which receives 20% of the bond for its projects. So you will see the current levels of spending is greater than the current level of expected revenue, but that's because we already received the money 2.5 years ago. Our storm drain fund shows a deficit this year of $85,000, and also the capital facility fees, which is the money that we received on the development, shows a deficit of $52,000 this year. But once again, in this particular fund, there has been money accumulated over the years, and now we're spending it on specified projects. Revenue is very tentative. We have no idea what the state is going to do. Expenses are relatively tentative because we have no idea what the labor negotiations and salary discussions are going to be. The next page is really far more meaningful. It's the balance sheet report as anticipated for June 30th of 2001. When you look at the fund balance, keep in mind that this reflects all assets, not just the liquid assets, not just the assets that we could spend. It includes the fixed assets, the notes that are out that we don't have access to, but it is under the city's name. So this is the total amount that the city's worth. The only fund that reflects a problem for next year is the storm drain fund, showing at a deficit of $141,000. Redevelopment fund is made up of actually five different funds, and even though Fund 73, which is the main RDA, the main redevelopment agency fund, is in the hole $195,000, if you look to the very bottom fund, which is the debt service fund, that is to the positive $615,000. By state law, the redevelopment agency in its normal operations needs to operate in the deficit. It cannot collect money. So the money that we get from tax increment goes into the debt service, and at the end of the year, that money will be transferred to the normal redevelopment agency account and zero out the debt. So it'll be okay, but it cannot show a credit balance. That is the only fund that cannot show a credit balance. Briefly, I'd like to touch over a few of the highlights by categories, just to let you see where the overall picture. There is a page that's entitled percent of type to total budget. And I always like to talk about things to categorize things by the type. It seems like it makes things a little simpler to understand instead of looking at all those 800 different line item numbers that we deal with. You will notice that salaries make up close to 50% of our operating budget. So again, that limits your discretion at this point in the discussion because decisions are made during the contract and negotiation phases, not during the budget phases. That has to be decided separately and before we actually adopt the budget. The dollar amounts that you're looking at for salary and fringe benefits are held at the current level. They do not reflect any salary increases or requests. They do not reflect any reclassifications or additional staffing levels. Same with the fringe benefits. The contract services, this year we're requesting, and it'll be before you in the next meeting or two, we're going to have a study done on the developer fees, and that has been added. $25,000, it's funded in the finance department, but the funding is coming from the capital facility fees. That's why there's a deficit this year in capital facility fees. General fund expense, there's $3,000 newly added for the municipal elections that will occur in November. One important note is on government auxiliary, our depreciation fund. Several years ago, we set up an account which we took the current year's depreciated amount on all the city's assets and charged that current expense to every fund. That revenue transfer was made to a capital replacement fund. Anytime there was a large capital item that needed to be repaired or replaced, it was not charged against general fund or against the fund that bought it. It was charged against this fund that had gotten its money from the depreciation account. So it didn't hit a fund at a certain time. It would go against this account where the money has been saved. This year, in order to make our general fund balance, we were not able to make that transfer. So $79,000, which normally would have been charged against general fund, was not. This year, that's okay, but the result is things that are bought out of this account are things like the police car. Next year, we may not be able to fund a police car because we're not putting in the money to that fund this year. Other changes this year, police department's getting a new copier, so that's a new lease, increasing at about $2,000 per year. The assessment district, contract services, has an additional $24,000 added. That was due to the contract with Early Bird Landscaping, but this transferred some of the salary costs, eliminated some vehicle maintenance and supplies because it's going to be covered by the supplier. So the total cost of the budget, department cost for assessment district, is up $5,000. Storm drain, we've added a $75,000 cost for study. Utilities this year is basically held the same, except the wastewater treatment plant's electricity is projected to go down about $25,000. Vehicle maintenance is basically the same. Other costs, there has been added to the council's expenses a community promotion / economic development program for $5,000. Police dispatch is up $6,600. Building inspection is down from $158,000 to $75,000. We had a lot of permits taken out this year on the forecast homes, so while it's nice that the expense is going down, but remember that the revenue is going down accordingly, so it's not that nice in the long run. A few of the capital items, vehicles, there's been 2 requests for vehicles, the police department, a patrol vehicle, and the fire department, a pickup. That's $57,000 total in vehicles. Equipment, we have things like a utility trailer for the parks, a cage at the corporation yard for equipment, a lath for the wastewater treatment plant, computer equipment, software for the clerk, finance, a new printer, police, 2 new computers and their ARMS program to run them. Total equipment cost budgeted this year is $60,000, but only $10,000 of that is new items. The other items are carried over from the prior year, which you've already approved. Land, building, and site improvements, $134,000. Of that, only $70,000 is new. That includes things like road repair at the treatment plant, $4,000 for work at the memorial building, corporation yards to repair their lights and some other electrical work is $800. At the plant, a $3,000 overhang. The theater roof, $40,000. And recreation, there's a program to resurface some of the tennis courts jointly with the school district. So that's about $70,000 new items. The other items, again, were carried over from last year. We have lots of projects. All of these projects you have approved during the course of the year on an individual basis. They total $2.3 million. Those are like the city's streetscape, the Inyo Railroad crossing, and other projects that are going around through town. And then we have our housing and grant programs. That totals $1.3 million. We have a new application into HUD for another $500,000 for a rehab program. We have $552,000 remaining on our senior grant that we haven't gotten the money for because we haven't spent it yet. We still have about $200,000 left on our current rehab grant, which doesn't expire until next March. All that together equals about $1.3 million. So that's a quick synopsis. There really isn't much that's changed. We're just trying to get by with what we have, and then anything new is what has just been enumerated for you. So if there are any questions?
Are there any questions for Margaret? No? I think it's all like usual. It's spelled out pretty clear.
Margaret does a great job.
If there are no other questions, then if we could go ahead and have some direction on this resolution.
I move adoption of resolution number 2000, next number, a resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the fiscal year 2000-2001.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item G, this is approval of warrant 18861 to PG&E. Can I have some direction?
I move that we approve warrant 18861 to PG&E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0 with one non-participating. Item 10, this is to adjourn to meet as the Newman Redevelopment Agency. May we have a roll call, please?
Present?
Present.
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 Present. Item 10B, this approved resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the Newman Redevelopment Agency fiscal 2000-2001. If there are no other things to add, we had Margaret pretty much go through it a minute ago. If there are no questions, can we have some direction?
Make a motion, we approve a resolution adopting preliminary budget for the Newman Redevelopment Agency fiscal year 2000-2001.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item C, to adjourn to reconvene to the regular session. Item 11, these are items from the city manager. Cleve?
The only thing I think that I have is just mention quickly, and the mayor, you may want to, we're maybe going to bring this up also. Yesterday, yesterday was that?
Mhm.
Yes. Yesterday, the mayor and I met with county officials, Paul Caruso, Mick Krosnick, the county council, and Regan Wilson regarding the Tataric settlement, and it appears that we're going to be able to get approved the request that we made to receive $300,000 for them to fund probably the street project, which is the LM and Stanislaus Streets, which will increase economic development and improve that area down there. We did also discuss briefly our request for undergrounding of utilities in the two alleys, on both sides of Main Street, and that one's still a little bit up in the air, but it appears that possibly we may end up getting some funding for that also. So those are both good news. The LM and Stanislaus Streets, we will be coming back to you because we will have to put some additional funding in that to complete those projects. I believe, if I recall, it's about $100,000 to $150,000 of our own money that we'll be adding to that, and we will look at using redevelopment money for that as part of our economic development program. So that's really all I have, unless, Mary, you want to add anything on those?
No, the thing they had mentioned to us was that the board had agreed in principle that we deserve, that obviously that $300,000 should come our way, and the board felt that way, and you know, they expressed to us, as Cleve had said, that obviously our project, their problem was that it had already come into the county coffers, so they needed, that's why they had the county council there they needed to be able to legally justify, you know, which is now their public funds, as to why they're going to expend $300,000. And so basically they have said to us that they need to work with us as far as formalizing our project. It needs to come back to us. We'll do our portion, which, as Cleve said, will be about $160,000, so we'll get about $500,000 worth of work for about $160,000, which will coincide with the Merced Street overlay plus the Inyo overlay, so now we'll be able to fill in the LM and Stanislaus Street. And so we should be able to move quickly on that, and as far as what Cleve said, we should be hearing back on the undergrounding as well. So, as we've said before, the worst thing they could say is no. All we need to do is just ask. If they say no, then we ask again until they keep saying yes. So, anyway, Councilmember Martina?
The only thing I'd mention, to go along with what Bob and Lois said, that when we start this streetscape project, we gotta have to keep up good communication, not only with the business people, but the general public. And I don't know, I guess there's a number of ways we can do it, but the newspaper being one, and then and walking around and talking to the merchants, that that's going to be one of the things we're going to have to do.
We will be putting together not only a communication program, but if you will, a marketing program. I know that Councilmember Martina and I have talked a little bit about the Temecula program and some things that they did down there where, in actuality, they increased revenues in their downtown area during construction rather than having it go down. And that's one of the goals we would like to see happen by promoting not stay away from the downtown area because construction is going on, but come down to the downtown area and see the facelift that's happening in downtown. And hopefully we can work with the merchants to do, I don't know what they end up being, construction sales or whatever during that time and offer incentives and programs to get citizens down there. So we'll definitely look at that. There's also already been some conversation between the chamber and the West Side Index in helping us out with publicity and et cetera during that time to make it work. So yes, we'll definitely do that.
That's the only comment I had.
Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, I'm just very pleased to hear about the 300,000, which I felt all along that was justified for us to get. We went through a lot through that period, and it just goes to show you that if you don't ask, you don't get. So, good job, please.
Councilmember Radford?
I just, speaking of Tatarek, I wondered, do we have a status report on the cleaning of the pond?
I haven't been out there yet to see what kind of progress they're making. I know that I speak with or get a voicemail message or either speak with Alex Benecki almost on a weekly basis. So they are communicating with us. They're making progress, but I think it's still slow, obviously, with what they're able to do, but they are making progress.
Thank you. And I want to thank the city for getting those 35-mile-an-hour signs on Hills Ferry moved out. They still seem to go awfully fast down that road, but coming into town and going out, but I guess that's just something we're going to have to work on. But I appreciate you taking the action on that. And just, this is so great, $300,000. It's wonderful. And the downtown project going, I mean, everything is really looking up. The July 29th, everybody hold that one on your calendar. Yeah. That's going to be fun. And the newsletter, I got it today and did a great job on it. So, thank you.
Judy did a lot of work on that. She's the one that gets the credit for that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Reed?
I really didn't hear that much. Just I would like to expound on the 35-mile signs. I wondered if we could get. We have one right where where Merced Street kind of narrows a little bit, and then we don't have any more on out until we get to the ending of the 35-mile zone. I wonder if we could get one just past where Canal Road comes in, because it's before you get to Driscoll, and it would let the people know, okay, it's still 35 here now. It's not speed up. So I thought one more sign maybe. Could we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll
Everything
take
else
a look
is
at
great, but I think just one more sign would help a lot. And then on this Tatarek thing, when Mr. Benecki was here, someone brought up the fact of the improvement of the grounds around his plant, and he said that they were strapped for money and they had to operate for a period of time before they could do this. Wasn't there $185,000 set aside in this fine that they were had to pay just for that improving the?
It wasn't for it wasn't for aesthetic improvements. That was for equipment improvements to go back into trying to solve the odor problem. Is what I believe is what that was for.
Okay, I thought it meant that I read that it was for the.
I'll take another look at the settlement and find out, but I believe the way what that was for was part of it was for expense of some of the things they'd already done towards the rotary filters and stuff like that. I believe, but yeah, I believe it was improvements to look at the odor problem, not the aesthetics out there.
I think there was something on landscaping improvements, but that might have been for the community. I'm thinking that was set aside for the community to make landscaping.
No, I don't.
Well, we did receive $40,000 already from them.
Yeah, but
that was designated for,
parks or whatever.
right,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anything else? Okay. Also want to welcome you back, Councilmember Reed.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here. Great to be anywhere.
Great to wake up in the morning.
Right, yeah.
Tell me about it.
He's amazing.
Don't want to do that every day.
And I have a couple quick items. At the meeting last night, one of the things that Cleve and I have talked about in the past, and I mentioned it last night, was as we begin this process of doing the downtown redevelopment and so forth, I'd like to bring back for some formal action as far as looking at possibly contracting out for taking care of some of these non-conforming signs downtown and seeing what we can do to take care of that. Since we're going to be downtown and doing the rest of this stuff, we might as well take care of everything at once. So if we can't maybe bring back a program that addresses those signs. And with that as well, Cleve, you had mentioned with regards to some of the improvements that may need to be made when we actually get the concrete out of the way to some of those buildings and adding them to the facade program. If we could formalize that, plus, again, we're gonna expend a lot of money on this project. So if we could maybe look at revisiting our facade program and how we could, work with the businesses to make it a more attractive program, and possibly, with these non-conforming signs in it as well. So just seeing how we can make this facade program even more attractive. Second thing, I just want to thank the Public Works Department. Ernie, I had noticed all over town there's the different areas where you guys are replacing sidewalks where, we've all seen for years the lifts in different areas of town. I'm glad to see that you guys are getting to that where you guys are replacing a lot of the sidewalks. One other thing that I would like to request, though, from Public Works Department is if maybe at the beginning of each month, because one of the things that I've noticed a little bit in some of the alleys, I've started to see a little bit of the graffiti up in some of the various areas that we've been really good about the graffiti, and I've noticed in some of the alleys we've started to see a little bit of it. But what I'd like to see us do is maybe at the beginning of each month, having whoever you decide from our Public Works Department, maybe send them out, be it the Police Department, Public Works Department, maybe the beginning of each month, 2 hours, go through the different alleys and go through town and just, write down where the graffiti is, and that way we could get rid of it immediately. Because like I said, I've started to notice a little bit of graffiti in some of these alleys, and we just don't want to, when it goes up, I'd like to see it immediately come down. So if we could, if the police and the Public Works and Cleve, maybe you all could work together and set something like that up at the beginning of each month. So if that's something that the council wouldn't mind doing. Okay. Other than that, I have nothing else, and if there are no other questions, I'd like to ask for an adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?